The Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystal floors, its dome reaching so high that artificial weather patterns formed in the upper atmosphere. Representatives from 400 worlds sat in their designated sections, each species maintaining careful distance from their traditional enemies. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime, converting the babble of alien languages into something resembling communication. Ambassador Sarah Chun walked through the main entrance with the measured pace of someone who had nothing to prove. Her simple black suit contrasted sharply with the elaborate ceremonial armor, flowing robes, and biomechanical exoskeletons worn by other delegates. At barely 5 feet tall, she appeared insignificant among the towering Vorthak warriors and the crystalline Zephyrians who sparked with internal lightning. The human delegation consisted of exactly 1 person. This fact had not gone unnoticed. The humans sent only 1 representative, rumbled Ambassador Thoktar of the Hegemony, his voice carrying across the chamber like grinding stone. His species had conquered 47 worlds through sheer brutality, and his battle scars told the story of each campaign. How perfectly fitting for such an insignificant species. Sarah found her assigned seat in the outer ring, where newer species were relegated. The positioning was deliberate, close enough to hear the proceedings, far enough away to remember their place. She settled into the chair that had been sized for her species, one of the few accommodations made for human physiology, and placed a simple tablet on the desk before her. The Kethmoran Empire occupied the center of the chamber. Their delegation alone numbered 50 beings, each one a perfect specimen of their species' evolutionary superiority. Emperor Vashti dominated even among his own kind, standing nearly 9 feet tall with chitinous armor that had turned deep purple with age and countless victories. His compound eyes reflected the chamber's lights like faceted jewels, and when he spoke, the chamber fell silent. "We gather today to address the human situation," the Emperor announced, his translated words carrying undertones of disdain that no technology could quite filter out. "This primitive species has been granted membership in our esteemed council, despite possessing neither the technology nor the military might to deserve such recognition." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The humans had been admitted to the Galactic Council only 2 years earlier, after a chance encounter with a Terran exploration vessel had revealed their existence. The decision had been controversial, with many species viewing humanity as too young, too violent, and too unpredictable to be trusted with galactic affairs. Sarah remained perfectly still, her expression unchanged. She had expected this moment from the day she accepted the position as Earth's first galactic ambassador. The intelligence briefings had made it clear that humanity's membership was temporary in the eyes of many council members, a probationary period that could be revoked at any time. "The humans possess exactly 37 star systems," continued Emperor Vashti, accessing data from his personal archive with a thought. "Their fastest vessels require weeks to travel distances our ships cover in days. Their largest military installation could be obliterated by a single dreadnought from any respectable fleet." The Emperor's aide, a younger Kethmoran with silver-tinted armor, activated a holographic display that filled the air above the chamber's center. Star charts appeared, showing the relative positions of major galactic powers. The Kethmoran Empire's territory appeared in deep red, sprawling across 3 full galactic arms. The hegemony controlled vast swaths of the outer rim in military green. The Trade Federation's commercial routes appeared as golden threads connecting hundreds of worlds. Humanity's territory appeared as a tiny cluster of blue dots, barely visible against the cosmic scale of the display. "Observe," the Emperor said, gesturing toward the hologram with one of his forearms. "The newest members of our council control less space than some species use for mining operations. They have been among us for 24 standard months, and, in that time, they have contributed nothing of value to galactic civilization." Ambassador Chen finally moved, reaching for her tablet with the same unhurried motion she had used to walk into the chamber. Several delegates leaned forward, curious about what defense the human might offer. Sarah touched the screen once, twice, then set it aside. "The Kethmoran Empire speaks of contributions," said Ambassador Yildar of the Technocracy. her mechanical voice carrying clearly through the translation matrix. The cyborg's optical sensors focused on Sarah with the intensity of targeting lasers. What technological advances have humans offered? What scientific discoveries? What cultural achievements worthy of note? The questions hung in the air like accusations. Sarah stood slowly, her movements drawing attention despite their simplicity. When she spoke, her voice was quiet enough that the chamber's acoustics had to amplify her words. "We brought music," she said. The statement generated a wave of confused chittering, buzzing, and mechanical clicking as delegates attempted to process what they had heard. Music was hardly unknown in galactic civilization, though most species expressed it through mathematical frequencies or biological emissions that other races found incomprehensible or irritating. "Music," repeated Emperor Vashti, the word carrying a tone of dismissive amusement. "The humans offer us noise patterns in exchange for membership in the most powerful political body in the galaxy." Sarah nodded gravely. "Among other things, yes." The Emperor's compound eyes shifted to focus entirely on the human delegation. Sarah could feel the weight of his attention like a physical force, the same predatory focus that had broken the will of countless enemy commanders during the Kethmoran expansion campaigns. "Perhaps," the Emperor said, his voice dropping to a more conversational tone that somehow carried more menace than his earlier proclamations, "it is time for the Council to reconsider humanity's membership status." The proposal had been inevitable, but hearing it spoken aloud still sent a chill through the chamber. Expulsion from the Galactic Council meant more than political isolation. It meant being cut off from interstellar trade routes, technological exchange programs, and the protection that came with membership in galactic civilization. "The Empire moves for an immediate vote on human expulsion," announced the Emperor's aide, his silver armor catching the light as he activated the formal proposal protocols. "The motion is seconded by the hegemony." Ambassador Thoktar's scarred face twisted into what might have been a smile. "Seconded with enthusiasm." The voting mechanism emerged from the chamber floor, a crystalline pillar that would record each delegate's decision and make it visible to all. Red lights indicated votes for expulsion, blue lights showed support for continued membership, and yellow represented abstention. Sarah watched the pillar rise with the same calm expression she had maintained throughout the session. She made no move to address the chamber, offer a defense, or plead for reconsideration. Her silence was more unnerving than any passionate speech might have been. "The floor is open for discussion," announced the Council's automated moderator, its artificial voice echoing from speakers throughout the chamber. Ambassador Kexlon of the Scientific Collective was the first to speak. His crystalline form rang like wind chimes as he moved. "The humans have shown remarkable adaptability in their brief time among us. Their approach to problem-solving is unconventional, but often effective." Unconventional. The Emperor's aide consulted his data archives with visible irritation. "The humans have attended 43 council sessions. In that time, they have spoken during formal proceedings exactly 7 times. They have submitted 0 proposals for consideration. Their participation in diplomatic functions has been minimal at best." Sarah finally spoke again. "We've been listening." The simplicity of her answer seemed to irritate several delegates more than silence had. Ambassador Yildar's optical sensors whirred as they refocused. "Listening to what, exactly?" "Everything." Sarah's gaze swept across the chamber, making brief contact with dozens of alien eyes, sensors, and perception organs. "We learn by watching. We understand by observing. We prepare by listening." "Prepare for what?" demanded Ambassador Thoktar, his massive hands curling into fists that could crush steel. For the first time since entering the chamber, Ambassador Chen smiled. It was a small expression, barely visible to most of the alien delegates, but those who had studied human facial patterns recognized it immediately. It was the smile of someone who knew something that others did not. "For questions like that one," she said. The Emperor rose from his throne-like seat, his full height making him tower over even his own delegation. When a Kethmoran emperor stood during council sessions, it traditionally meant that diplomacy was about to end. "The humans waste our time with riddles and philosophical posturing," he declared, his voice filling the chamber like thunder. "This is precisely why primitive species should not be granted council membership." They lack the mental development necessary for serious interstellar governance. Sarah's tablet chimed softly. She glanced at it, nodded once, and then looked directly at Emperor Vashti. Your Excellency, may I ask what prompted the Empire to call for this session today? The question seemed innocuous enough, but something in Sarah's tone made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. The Emperor's compound eyes narrowed. The Empire believes that Council membership should be reserved for species capable of meaningful participation in galactic affairs, he said carefully. I see. Sarah touched her tablet again. And this belief arose spontaneously, did it? The Empire simply woke up this morning and decided that humanity needed to be expelled. The Emperor's aide stepped forward. The Empire's motivations are not subject to questioning by members of the Council? Sarah interrupted gently. I thought that was exactly what Council sessions were for. Questions, discussions, debates among equals. The word equals generated another wave of agitated noise from the assembled delegates. The concept of equality between species as different as the Kethmorans and humans struck many as absurd on its face. Equals, repeated the Emperor, tasting the word like something unpleasant. The humans consider themselves equal to the Empire? Sarah shrugged, a gesture that translated reasonably well across most species. That's what Council membership means, isn't it? One species, one vote, one voice in galactic affairs. One voice, the Emperor agreed. But not all voices carry the same weight. Power matters in the real galaxy, human. Military strength, technological advancement, economic influence. These things determine a species' true value to galactic civilization. I understand your position, Sarah said, consulting her tablet once more. In fact, I believe you expressed similar views to the Zephyrian delegation approximately 8 hours ago. Something about primitive species needing to know their place. The chamber felt completely silent. Emperor Vashti's compound eyes fixed on Sarah with an intensity that had preceded the destruction of entire star systems. You seem remarkably well informed about private diplomatic conversations, he said slowly. Sarah's smile remained unchanged. We've been listening, as I mentioned. Sometimes we hear interesting things. The implications of her statement struck different delegates at different speeds. The Zephyrians began sparking more violently, their crystalline forms lighting up with electrical discharges that indicated extreme agitation. The technocracy delegation immediately activated privacy shields around their section. Ambassador Thoktar's scarred face darkened as he processed what the human had just implied. Are you suggesting, the Emperor asked, his voice dangerously quiet, that humanity has been conducting unauthorized surveillance of Council members? I'm not suggesting anything, Sarah replied. I'm simply noting that we've been very good listeners during our time here. The Emperor's aide activated his armor's threat assessment systems, and the soft hum of weapons charging filled the air around the Kethmoran delegation. Surveillance of Council members is a violation of the Treaty of Galactic Cooperation. It constitutes an act of espionage punishable by immediate expulsion and possible military action. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. That's an interesting interpretation of the treaty. Of course, the treaty also prohibits member species from coordinating attacks against other members outside of formal council proceedings. She touched her tablet one final time, and the chamber's holographic display system activated without authorization from the moderator. New images appeared above the assembly, images that made several delegates recoil in shock. The hologram showed a meeting room aboard a Kethmoran dreadnought. Emperor Vashti sat at the head of a table surrounded by military commanders and ambassadors from a dozen allied species. The timestamp indicated the recording had been made 3 days earlier. The Emperor's voice echoed through the chamber, speaking in his native language with subtitles appearing in multiple translations. The human problem requires a permanent solution. Expulsion from the Council is merely the first step. Once they are isolated, they become a legitimate target for pacification operations. The recording continued, showing detailed plans for the systematic conquest of human space following their political isolation. Fleet movements, invasion timetables, resource allocation strategies. Everything necessary to wipe humanity from the galactic map. That, said Ambassador Sarah Chun, her quiet voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence, is why we've been listening so carefully. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates leaped from their seats, some fleeing toward exits while others activated defensive systems. The Zephyrians discharged massive electrical bursts that lit up the dome like lightning. The technocracy delegation immediately began transmitting the recording to their home systems. Through it all, Emperor Vashti remained motionless, his compound eyes fixed on the small human who had just destroyed his carefully laid plans with a simple tablet and a gentle smile. "You seem surprised, Your Excellency," Sarah observed, raising her voice slightly to be heard over the din. "Surely you don't think we would join an organization like this without taking precautions?" The Emperor finally moved, rising to his full height as his personal guard formed a protective circle around him. "You have no idea what you have done, human. The Empire does not tolerate interference with its rightful expansion." Sarah's smile widened slightly. "I'm looking forward to learning more about that. We humans are very curious about concepts like rightful expansion and how they apply to sovereign star systems." The voting pillar continued to glow, waiting for the formal vote on human expulsion that now seemed very unlikely to proceed as planned. The chamber gradually quieted as delegates realized they were witnessing something unprecedented, a new species that had not only survived its first major political crisis but had turned it into a trap for their accusers. "The human delegation," announced the automated moderator, "has 30 minutes to present their formal response to the motion for expulsion." Sarah checked her tablet once more, then looked up at the thousands of alien eyes focused on her. "I think," she said calmly, "we'll need every minute." The recording played for 17 minutes and 43 seconds. Every delegate in the chamber watched in stunned silence as Emperor Vashti and his allies methodically planned the destruction of an entire species. The holographic display showed detailed star charts marking human colonies, resource calculations for orbital bombardment, and timeline estimates for complete territorial absorption. When the recording finally ended, the silence stretched on until even the chamber's environmental systems seemed to hold their breath. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood at her small desk in the outer ring, tablet in hand, watching hundreds of alien faces process what they had just witnessed. "The floor recognizes Ambassador Chun of the Human Federation," announced the automated moderator, its artificial voice breaking the spell of silence. Sarah walked toward the center of the chamber with the same unhurried pace she had maintained all day. Her footsteps echoed off the crystal floors, each step carrying farther than seemed possible in the vast space. When she reached the speaking platform, she set her tablet down and looked up at the assembled delegates. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation matrix. "I want to thank you for the opportunity to address these serious accusations against my species." Emperor Vashti remained standing, his compound eyes tracking Sarah's every movement. His personal guard had formed a defensive perimeter, their weapon systems active but not yet targeting. The Emperor's aide whispered rapidly in his native language, updating him on developing situations across Kethmoran space. "The Empire has accused humanity of conducting unauthorized surveillance," Sarah continued, gesturing toward the holographic display that still showed frozen images from the secret meeting. "This is correct. We have been watching, listening, and recording activities throughout Council space since the day we were granted membership." The admission sent another wave of shock through the chamber. Ambassador Yildar of the technocracy leaned forward, her optical sensors whirring at maximum magnification. "You admit to violating galactic law?" Sarah nodded. "We admit to protecting ourselves using every available means. The question is whether survival constitutes a crime under Council jurisdiction. Surveillance of member species is explicitly forbidden," declared Ambassador Kexlon of the Scientific Collective, his crystalline form ringing with agitation. "The Treaty of Galactic Cooperation is clear on this matter." "The treaty is indeed clear," Sarah agreed, retrieving her tablet and touching the screen. New images appeared in the holographic display, pages of legal text highlighted in multiple colors. Section 47, Subsection 12 prohibits unauthorized intelligence gathering operations. However, Section 23, Subsection 8 grants member species the right to defend themselves against credible threats to their existence. She gestured toward the frozen image of Emperor Vashti, discussing invasion plans. I would argue that systematic planning for genocide constitutes a credible threat. The Emperor's aide activated his communication systems, speaking rapidly in encrypted channels. Sarah watched him with interest, her expression unchanged. Furthermore, she continued, Section 15, Subsection 3 of the treaty specifically requires member species to report evidence of planned aggression against other council members. Which brings us to the real question of this session. The holographic display shifted again, showing a new set of recordings. These were older, dating back several months, showing similar meetings between various species discussing the human problem. The hegemony's leadership appeared in one recording, the merchant princes in another, and nearly a dozen other powers in subsequent clips. The question, Sarah said, her voice taking on a harder edge, is not whether humanity has been conducting surveillance. The question is why so many council members have been planning our destruction since the day we arrived. Ambassador Thoktar of the hegemony rose from his seat, his massive frame bristling with barely contained violence. The hegemony has made no secret of its position regarding primitive species. We believe council membership should be earned through demonstrated capability. Demonstrated capability, Sarah repeated thoughtfully, such as the capability to defend oneself against overwhelming odds. She touched her tablet again,